What a wonderful honor to be preaching here today. When we first came, I sat in that very back corner, which I see nobody is sitting there today because they learned their lesson, and now I'm preaching. So be warned, if you sit at that back corner eating popcorn, one day you will be up here preaching. But just the leadership of this church is so genuine and real, and it makes a big difference. We came here a little bit hurt, a little bit cynical, a little bit sick at church, and we were immediately won over by the genuineness and the love in this place. And that's the way it should be. I really believe. But welcome to Velocity Church. And I really hope that this time that you are giving this time of your life that you'll never get back again. And when you give something of your life, you must get value for it, because your life is precious. We burn so many hours in our life doing stupid things. But make sure that what you are giving your life into, that you are getting value for it. And that's what I pray happens here today. I'm very encouraged to see friends and different people showing up. And there's 3 people here that have seen me on the floor in the fetal position. And that's my mom, my wife, and my personal trainer. And so as we're talking about the art of being unordinary, you know what is unordinary? People who know who they are. If you think about the world that we are in today and reflect on your own feelings, knowing who we are is such a difficult thing in these times. And you just have to look around. Somebody's this thing one day, they're this the next day, they enter this, they're out of this, they for this, they're against this. I mean, things are shifting and changing all the time. And I believe the problem is because we don't know who we are. We live on a ranch now, and I have a window watching the chicken field, and they know who they are. They wake up, they know what they're doing, they know who they are. They're not trying to, ride a bicycle or do any of these things. They're just doing what chickens do. And I'm not insulting us by saying we're the same as chickens. We're not. The chickens are better. But if I had to ask you this question, or ask you to ask yourself, it might seem very simple at first, but you'll see it becomes complex trying to answer this question. Ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? If you imagine sitting on a plane, and the person turns to you and says, tell me about you. It's very easy for you to ramble off what you do and what you have. Am I right? Well, tell me about you. Well, I'm a doctor, I do this, or I'm a farmer, or, I'm in software, I'm married, I have 2 kids, this and this. This is my car, I've got a nice house, all of these things. But none of those things are actually who you are. Those are attributes or things you have or things you like. But who am I is a very difficult question to answer. And the reason is because we're living in a culture that doesn't really care who you are. It's about what you have and what you do and what you can give or whatever it might be. And so we haven't spent much time actually defining and understanding who we are. But it's such an important question, because I believe what you believe you are, what you believe about yourself, it really influences so many, if not all, of the decisions that you make in life. Example, if you don't believe that you are outdoorsy, like me for most of my life, it influences the decisions when somebody invites you to go camping and you're like, wow, they invented houses. So just that one small belief, I'm not outdoorsy, stopped me from learning how to fish, stopped me from camping, stopped me from all of these things because I had a belief. Now that's something minor. You can make it through life without fishing. But what when it comes to bigger things, like you believe, well, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm dumb, I won't be able to do that, I can't achieve that. We have taken on identities in our life that then end up limiting what we can become, because we have defined ourselves by something that we should never have done it. Am I speaking the truth to anybody here? You're like, I've had those thoughts, I've made those declarations in my life. So How do you respond? Here's an example. How do you respond when somebody invites you to do something for the first time? Do you respond in confidence going, that'll be fun, I'll figure it out, even though I've never done it before? Or are you afraid? And you're like, oh, I'm going to make a fool of myself. I don't think that I can do that. Like, play dead. Which one are you? Because we have those things. I think I tend, in some instances, I tend more to the other side. I get fearful with being invited to parties of people that I don't know. And you're like, Brent, you're busy preaching to people you don't know. Yeah, this is different, right? Because I've got this table between us. I'm safe. And I have the microphone. But going into a room full of people that I don't know, I get scared. Do you know why? Because I've taken on the identity that I'm an introvert. Who are you, Brent? I'm an introvert. But that's not what defines me. That may be where I'm comfortable, but that's not the definition of who I am. So I have made life choices to limit me from situations, taking on an identity that never actually belonged, because now I believe that's who I am. So, let me ask it to you in this way. What defines you? What defines you as a person? What defines you? And you might, for me to make up some examples, you might say, I'm a doctor, I'm a mother, I'm an Aggie, I'm a farmer, I'm a football player. And all those definements, totally made up word there, can cause you to lose your identity. And let me explain why. You're a farmer, right? That's your identity. I'm a farmer. What happens if you lose your farm? Or you can no longer farm. Or farming gets outlawed, because you can't kill pigs anymore in California. Or whatever it is. What happens to your life? And we have watched this. If it has not happened to you, you have 100% seen it happen to someone else. When they've identified with something and that one thing got taken away. Their life came completely apart because that was the definition of who they were. What about a doctor? Who are you? I'm a doctor. I practice medicine. That's your whole identity. It's wonderful that you do that. But if that's your whole identity, what happens when you can no longer practice? Your life becomes purposeless. You no longer have a reason to live. You no longer can function in this world. What about a football player or footballer? I'm not sure if that's the correct word, but a footballer. We have seen this happen time and time again when a footballer gets injured, and what happens to their life? They completely come off the rails, and many have ended in suicide, and we've seen this for different industries and things because that was their entire existence. You can do it for a YouTube influencer. You can go through everything. When we take on an identity of things that can shift and change, we put our entire being at risk because our identity is now in flux. Who's with me? Who's ever defined themselves by something that was in flux? I think about, people at high school who did well in sports, and now they're 62, right? And they're still telling you about this one time in high school. They got the trophy for, MVP, and you're like, and what happened to the other, 46 years or, whatever, what happened? That's because an identity was placed in something, and so they haven't been able to move forward because they were defined by that moment. Those moments are wonderful, and if you are 62 and you were MVP, fantastic. But there's much more, and that's not what defines you. That was a moment, a great moment. I remember when good things happened in sports, but that did not define who I was, and it cannot. Yet other things have. They are wonderful ways to express yourself. A mom. It's wonderful that you can be a mom, but what happens if you lose the child? You see what I'm saying? If that was your entire existence, that was your entire identity, if a tragedy like that happens, your life is over. But to be a mom and a farmer and a doctor and a football player is a fantastic thing. But it's something that you express yourself in. It's not what defines who you are, because it can shift and it can change. And along with that goes your identity. And we are struggling. We are in an identity crisis in our culture, in the world today, when people don't know who they are. They go to sleep one gender, they wake up another. They one political party, now they're all in on another. Whatever it is, we are shifting and changing because we don't know who we are. If my identity is based in finances, I remember watching on the news when the huge crash happened in 2008, and literally bodies were falling from the buildings in New York. Do you remember that? As people were jumping because they had lost everything. But that's not everything. They just lost money. But that was everything. Have you ever said, I lost everything? Or because everything was defined by that, but it cannot be the case. You are so much more than whatever we have identified ourselves when it's shifting and changing. Let's talk about insecurity. Probably most of us, except for my friend Jason Melton, struggle with insecurity in one way or another. There's some things that we are totally okay with, and then there's other things that we struggle with. And the definition of insecurity is uncertainty or anxiety about oneself, a lack of confidence. Would you be real with me? Because you're not going to be the only person raising your hand. Anyone here struggle with insecurity in one way or another? Most of us. When did we develop a lack of confidence for anything? Do you know that our clothing can cause us to have a lack of confidence because we don't have the latest? And if we do have the latest, then we're confident. Do you see how dangerous that is? Because my very personality or my ability to engage is based upon something that is so in flux, and marketing love to exploit insecurity. Do you know that most marketing is targeted at your insecurity? Right, the beer ad where the guy cracks open a beer and suddenly he's cool and all the girls come around. And there's guys watching that TV who have no girlfriend and like, that's what I need. That's going to do it. It's totally exploiting. Here's how you can get a better identity. Here's how you can gain this or that. If you drive this car, if you wear these things, or the best is the iPhone. Because when you have the latest iPhone, you're cool. But next year, you're not cool because there's a new iPhone. And so this identity of who you are is constantly in flux and changing. Who has felt the stress of having a changing who I am, an identity consistently because of life events and things that are going on? I was talking with my trainer about Disney World the other day. Do you know what Disney's slogan is? Does anyone know? Shout it out. The happiest place on earth. Did you know that? And do you know who believes that Disney is the happiest place on earth? Anyone who's never been to Disney. Now, don't get me wrong. Disney is fun. But when you've been standing in the line for It's a Small World After All for 2 hours, and you're ready to choke out the kids around you, and some guy has snuck past you and got ahead of you when you had been standing in that spot, and you turned for a second and now there's a whole family in front of you, you don't feel happy. I know this from first-hand experience. You're angry, you're hungry, you're frustrated, you feel robbed because a hot dog's $42. But why is that slogan so powerful? Because we are looking for happiness. So we're like, okay, if I add that, that's going to fix who I am, because who I am is sad. Who I am is lonely. Who I am is hurting. Who I am is, bitter, whatever it might be. So if I go to Disney, things are going to be better. And things are for that moment before you walk into the park. You do feel happy. It's true. And then you feel poor. Which brings me to my next point. Our inner dialogue. Does anyone ever take note of the inner dialogue going on in their mind? Do you ever catch your inner dialogue becoming your outer dialogue? And it's usually not good, except for my friend Jason Melton. But for the rest of us, our inner dialogue is not good. I'm going to tell you a true story, but I had my shirt off, and I was in my bathroom, and I was looking in the mirror, and out came these words: "You fat pig." It was a different word, but for church, I will say pig. And it just came out as I was looking at myself. And I was like, this is what I've defined myself as. Go with me back to the aeroplane. Hi, my name's Brent, and I'm a pig. What have you defined yourself by? What are the things that you may never tell others? You know, you put your best foot forward, but when you're alone with yourself and you're looking in the mirror or you're in the dark, whatever it is, and that voice, those voices are playing in your mind about your failures and about these things, what are the things that are being said? What are the things that you are saying to yourself, defining who you are, and you don't even realize that you are saying it? Who has ever called himself a loser? It may have been in a moment something of, you're such a loser. You're an idiot. You know, and these things, we have defined ourselves. So when you want to know who you are, that's what you actually believe about yourself. It's in those moments of crunch that you are saying these things. Nobody loves you. I have no friends. Anybody ever said that? Nobody, just me. That's even worse. We have to change the dialogue, and we have to find a better way to know who we are. So how can we do this? I believe your understanding of God, if there is a God, if there is a creator, is paramount in being able to interpret who I am. And let me tell you why. If there is no God and there is no creator, then I'm a product of a random explosion. Right? We've all read that of science, the Big Bang and all of these things. I'm a product of a random explosion. And if I am random and I've come from an explosion, then in true randomness, it's impossible to have purpose. You cannot have purpose in chaos. And if I come from randomness, I cannot have an identity, only that of which I create myself. And you know what I've learned? I create a terrible identity. I am hard on myself. Anybody else? I'm more negative on me than I am on anybody else. I don't know why that is. I don't know the things that I believe about myself. There are others that believe in me far more than I believe in myself, and vice versa. I'll look at somebody else who's struggling. I'm like, are you crazy? You're amazing. It's like, you can do this. They're like, no, I don't think I can. I'm like, of course you can. But yet I'm the same way. So I have to trade that in for something better than what I am giving myself. But if there is a creator, then I'm part of that creation. And if I'm part of that creation, that means I was created on purpose. And if I was created on purpose, that means I have a purpose. And therefore, my value is no longer defined by what I think I am, but by the one who created me. Now, I know if you've been sitting in church a long time, you're like, Brent, tell me something I don't know. But I'm talking to people who are having the same thoughts, and you've been sitting in church a long time. You with me? We are fighting these things even though we know and believe that there is a creator. But I have to change the definition of who I am, and I have to offer that up to the one who created me, because only he knows who I am. And I have to listen to his words over my words to truly discover the answer to who I am. I have to allow those words to burn away what I am not. Sometimes to find out who we are, we have to get rid of what I'm not. We have to stop listening to lies and let truth penetrate our hearts. What would tomorrow look like if you faced the world with a truth about who you are, instead of with the negative self-talk of what we tell ourselves? Oh gosh, it's Monday. Mondays are the worst. Yeah, Mondays feel like the worst, but it doesn't have to be true that Mondays are the worst. Mondays can be wonderful. You could win the lottery on a Monday. It'd be Mondays are the best. Let me give you an example. Psalm 139:14. This is from the New Living Translation. I like that because it's easier to understand. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Okay, versus you're a fat pig versus wonderfully, marvelously made. Which one is going to lead me to be a better father, a better husband, a better person in the day? Going out believing I'm a fat pig, or going out believing I have been wonderfully made? Yes, I may need to lose a few pounds, but that's not defining who I am. Do you see the difference? It doesn't mean that we just throw away everything that we need to do. No, it's changing the definition of who I am. Vitamin water, very refreshing. Get some after the service. And if you're watching Vitamin Water, this is a sponsored video. It's not. Don't send Pastor Arthur a letter. So, we have to find the things that we are saying about ourselves, and we have to find what the Creator says about us, and we have to exchange that dialogue for His dialogue, because then and only then will we be who we were truly made to be. You with me? We have to let go of that dialogue, as we are thinking that we are the highest authority in defining who we are, but we are not. He is the highest authority in defining who we are. There's that old poem or whatever it is about the violin. I don't know if anybody knows it. It's a beautiful poem. But basically the premise of the story is they're at an auction and they take this dusty old violin and, it's squeaking and like violins can be. And the auctioneer says, $1, $2, who will give me $3? Anyway, a man walks up and tunes it and plays like a beautiful symphony. And then the auctioneer's like, 10,000, 20,000, who will give me 30? Who was that guy who tuned it? The Creator. And your Creator wants to tune you to your best sound you've ever been. He created you for a purpose, for a reason. You have value and you are loved outside of anything that you would do. In this world, you are only loved for what you do. Let's be honest. What you have to offer defines your worth in this world. But with God, it's not that way. It's who you are. We have a small taste of that with our children. We love our children despite what they do. If it was left up to what they do, they would be in orphanages, all of them. But we adore them because they are our creation. But ultimately they are His creation. And you are His creation. And He wants to tune you to this beautiful sound. Here's another one. The godly may trip 7 times, but they get up again. Who's ever said, I'm a failure? Or thought I'm a failure? I'm a failure in life. I'm a failure in this. I should have been so much further ahead. If I just done this differently. If I just done that differently. You with me? But this defines you differently. Saying, yeah, you fall down a few times, but you will get up again. So if I'm getting up again, guess what? I'm not a failure. But failure doesn't define who I am. It's a state or an action. It does not have the ability to define me as a person. Who are you, Brent? I'm a failure. No. I may have failed at things, but it cannot define me as a person. And if you have defined yourself as a person, you need to redefine yourself by your Creator to say, you are a riser. You fall, but you get up again. To illustrate this point further, reading from Luke 15, verse 11, Jesus told them a story. A man had 2 sons. The youngest son told his father, I want my share of your estate now, before you die. So the father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his younger son packed all the belongings and moved out to a distant land, and there he wasted his money in wild living. Anyone identify with this? Anyone ever messed up stuff that you're like, oh my gosh? About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him. That means so much more to me than it ever meant before. And the man sent him into the field to feed the pigs. We fed the pigs this morning. It's not a place you want to be hanging out. The young man became so hungry that even the pods that he was feeding the pigs looked good to him. But nobody gave him anything. He finally came to his senses, and this is what I pray for every single person here. Whether you know God or don't know God, we have to come to our senses that we have got ourselves into places in our lives. May not be every aspect, but there are definitely aspects in our life where we were once with the Father, and now we're with the pigs in our belief about ourselves. At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. This is what happens when we define ourselves. We discount what we actually can be and who we actually are. You hear what I'm saying? We are most times, if not always, going to tend towards the negative of who we are as people and what we can achieve. This guy is defining himself, just even if I was even a servant, that would even be a stretch for me because I'm so low and I've messed up so big. And I'm such trash, if I can just reach up just to be a servant in the household. Some of us think we've done things that God could never love us for, God could never forgive us for. So we don't even want to try. We just want to stay with the pigs because we can't even begin to turn around to face. And I pray that you come to your senses today. That God will redefine himself to you, that maybe you don't even understand him. And then he will able to redefine yourself to yourself, that you can know. You see, people give up on us. Anyone ever been given up on? Is that right? Given up on? Anyone? Some people have turned their back on you, walked away, whatever the thing is. A teacher says, you're no good, you'll never be able to do it. We've all had these things, and so we attribute that onto God, but God has never given up on us, and he will never give up on us. A lot of our understanding comes from our earthly fathers, and some of us were abandoned by our fathers or whatever it might be, so we think God is like that, but God is not like that. And we need him to come and show us and teach us what he's really like. So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming, filled with love and compassion. This is out of the horse's mouth about God. This is his son telling us about the Father. I want you to know that God is filled with love and compassion. There are times that we are not filled with love and compassion. And so we think God must be like that. God gets fed up with us. No, but God tells us to forgive 70 times 7. Which means him himself is forgiving 70 times 7. He's not going to tell us to do something he's not doing. God's forgiveness is mind-blowing. It's undeserved. We don't experience that in this world. We never get anything undeserved. If you got something for free in the mail, they'll get you another way. Anyone got an email? Click on this for a free iPhone. Don't click. He ran to his son. God's not sitting on his throne saying, let me see what you got. No. He's been running after you all this time, wanting to reach you in the hurting, broken, dark places of your life. And I'm not only talking to people who maybe are only hearing this message for the first time. There are people who have been preaching for decades who have pig mentality in some areas of their life. All of us. Right? We've had an event happen, a tragedy or a mistake or something happen, and out of that we've developed a pig mentality about ourselves, that we're just good enough to eat the pods for the pigs. But this is the true story, that if you would dare to just give that to God with dirty hands and dirty face and whatever else and say, I'm not even worthy to be a servant, you will find that God's not what you thought he was, as this guy didn't even realize how good his own father was. He thought he could just get some food and be a servant, and yet there the father was waiting, runs at him with love and compassion. And what does he say? My new servant is home. No. What does he say? My son has come home. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Let's kill the best we have and let's party. Never in a million dreams that this guy imagined that he was going to go home to a party. If he knew that, he would have gone home long ago. Because he didn't understand the Father's love. God's love is not like our love. It is so much better. We fail all the time. We fail all the time. But God is not like us. He does not fail. And that's why if my identity is based in Him, I am His. I am His child. It's not shifting and changing. Because tomorrow when there's a stock crash, I'm still His child. And if I lose my house, I'm still His child. And if I'm His child, what does that mean? It means He's going to come through for me one way or another. Or if all my friends leave me, I'm still His child, which means what? I still got the best relationship on earth, and He will work it out. When my brother and I started Second MD, I don't know if you listen to much dance music, but there was this group, Brothers on the Fourth Floor or something, and the whole song was just like a techno beat, and the words were, the brother's going to work it out. The brother's going to work it out. And my mom, when we were struggling to get Second MD going, she'd be playing that song, the brother's going to work it out. God's going to work it out. There's some things that we just don't even know how we would ever rectify or come right. But God will work it out. You have to think back to some times in your life where you were so desperate and now you're out of that situation. You cannot forget those situations because God worked it out and then we just carried on like nothing happened. No, He literally stepped in and showed His love and then we forgot. God is going to work it out. There have been so many things that we have cried out to God, so desperate, God, if you would just answer this, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. Anyone else done that? I just need this one thing. And that was like in primary school. I needed a lot more things since then. You no longer have to have your identity in a state of flux. Just come to Him with open hearts. He knows who you are. You know, so many times we put on our best foot forward so that others will accept us. We become something else that we're not because we think that's what people want us to be. But when you're comfortable in being who you want to be, who God's made you to be, then it doesn't matter if people accept you, don't accept you, because you are who you're meant to be. Right? The chicken's not offended like, you don't have a beak like a duck. Nice. Chicken's going to carry on. When I'm confident in who I am in His creation, it doesn't matter what anybody else says? Can you still have good fashion when you are secure in Him? Yes. Enjoy it though. You can have a nice car, you can have a nice house, you can have all of these things, but it's not what defines you. So if one day you have it and one day you don't, you're still the same person. You have a business, you don't have a business. You're the CEO or you're the cleaner. It doesn't matter because your identity is in something unshakable. So if you would pray with me today, and there's no magic words, but if you would bow your head and close your eyes and just ask God, He knows the things that have been striking your heart as I've been talking, the negative things you've been saying about yourself. Just say, Father, I don't know you like I should know you. In fact, I probably have a very wrong idea about you. Maybe religion has caused me to think something about you that's not true. So I'm asking you today, would you show yourself to me in a way that I can understand and that I can receive? I don't want to be eating with the pigs anymore. When I can be with you, knowing my value and knowing who I am. I only have one life to live, and I want to live it the way you intended for me to do this. Let me experience your grace. And would you forgive me for what I have believed that has been a lie, and teach me the truth. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. And for those watching online, we are giving $10,000 away to everyone who came here today. Sorry for you.